So in today's episode, Nancy and I start off by talking about our own judging of other people, particularly driving in these examples we give, and how that is not best for our own energy for ourselves, not to mention for the larger universe. We also then start talking about how we ourselves are concerned about being judged and how that affects us. So during this podcast, we give some ideas and share some thoughts on how to not judge others and also not to convince ourselves that we need to believe or participate in other people judging us.
Welcome to Expansive Minds Podcast, Gateway to Freedom, a podcast where two friends, Aileen and Nancy, explore and expand beyond what they think they know in order to live a life of freedom. Thank you for joining us, and away we go.
Hello.
Good morning, Nancy.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Did we do Happy New Year last time?
I
don't know if we met this year. I don't even know anymore. Yep. Again, the sleep continues. The sleep lack thereof continues. So, these moon cycles.
Oh, yeah. And we got supermoon
Yeah.
coming up, and the energy on the planet. A lot of people are not sleeping.
Yeah.
I mean, my sleep is just mostly, I'm extremely active, and I find that I'm not in a deep sleep active in dreams. I'm in a very busy, light active. So it's just
that
like,
helps me. I'm feeling the same thing. Lots of movement. You know, last night Jimmy's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm sleeping. Leave me alone." He's like, "No, you're not."
I'm trying to sleep. I'm like above sleep, but kind of.
Yeah, no, that's
Lots
that
of people are having
restlessness,
that.
I would call it, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that validates, as what we're doing here is to share what's going on with us in the hope that it validates, so you don't have to beat yourself up about it. Like, I need to study a sleep expert stuff.
Exactly.
Being a sleep study. No,
Right.
you don't.
You don't take it personal or think you're alone. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, the collective is like,
Because the first thing I do is did I do my sleep protocols? Oh, I probably should have meditated before bed, or I probably should have flipped on this. I have a little, actually this is a fun little thing that I have. It's called a Happy, HAPBEE, and it generates magnetic frequencies. It's sort of reverse engineering moods. So it generates frequencies that are commensurate with happiness, clarity, mellowing out, fun, upliftment. And so it has these frequencies that it somehow captured or mimics those emotional states. So if you're having a hard time getting into an emotional state that you want, like one is focus and email. I'm like, I put that one on a lot. So you can try to reverse engiire it with this.
That's
with
great.
And I'm big on magnetics and frequencies. So
all good tools, all good support.
Yep. But before we get too deep, we set the intention. Okay. We come together as friends to be uplifting channels of love and light, and to have fun while we share concepts and ideas that we're encountering in the hopes that they may benefit other people. So it is.
Nice.
Thank y'all.
That's great. I know, I always look forward to seeing you on Fridays.
I totally look forward to this.
It's
This
so much
is
fun.
super fun for me. It's fun. Yeah.
is.
Yep. So as
great.
I was driving here this morning, of course not knowing what she wanted to talk about, never knowing what we're going to talk about until we get here, but I observed judgment. Me judging other drivers, me with a fear of being judged, because at one point I thought I was going to be late, and I wasn't sure who was running the podcast this time, and I'm like, oh my God, that they're going to think this of me, or they'll think that of me. So then, fortunately, since it's morning and I'm still in my awareness and still kind of, as the day goes on, I maybe lose a little bit of that stamina of being aware of what I'm doing, thinking, observing my thoughts. I was like, ooh, judgment, okay. So I said to Aileen, do you want to talk about judgment? So, so then as I was driving in the car, so first, like, somebody cut me off, and I looked at the car and I looked at the bumper sticker and shame on me. I'm like, well, of course they'd cut me off. And then I was like, oh my God, Nancy, you're listening to Love and Light on Angel Network, and shame on you, right?
Right, because it's not like the bumper sticker said, I will cut you off.
Right, or that the person who cut me off meant to. Maybe they were trying to get to their exit.
Right.
Maybe they're stressed. Maybe,
Right,
I could, like my Gabby girl always does. Gabby always grants people the benefit of the doubt. That's one of the many reasons why Gabby girl's my hero.
Yeah.
If there's a situation, she immediately gives people the benefit of the doubt. So I would like to do that. So, and then I'm driving and I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be late. They're gonna think I'm not respectful of their time. Da, da, da. And so then the whole thing back at me. I'm judging myself, or I'm expecting judgment from people. So I know we often bring up where it could come from.
Right.
We were raised on being judged a certain way, because if you didn't behave a certain way, then judgment was you were going to get punished, or you would be rewarded. And everything to me, not everything, I don't mean to sound all encompassing, but lower level frequencies can often be summed up by fear.
Exactly.
So instead I get too into my head and breaking down emotions and what they are, I say, this is just not a positive emotion. And whether it's fear-based or whatever. So I'm sat in the car and I said, team, entourage, as Crayon calls them, I choose to release whatever is going on in my subconscious mind, past, present, future, genetically, whatever, DNA, wherever it is in the Akash. From this moment forward, I choose not to be driven by fear or judgment. So, so anyway, I came to that awareness. So hopefully I won't do that to drivers anymore. So if you cut me off, hopefully I won't do an obscene gesture.
Dagger
At least
eyes.
I didn't do the gesture.
The gesture. The gesture.
So that's progress for me.
Well, this is great hearing you say that, because 2 weeks ago I was kind of checking in with myself and my body, and as we've said earlier, at this point in time, there's a lot of illness, a lot of sadness going on, a lot of just moving it out of our system, right? Because if we're raising up, all of our cells have their own consciousness, and every cell has to boop, 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 pop within us, and all that. So,
can I interrupt?
Yeah,
Because this
say it.
happened to me yesterday when I was meditating. Dry heaving. So some sort of purge.
oh yeah.
I was like in my zone. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. All of a sudden, I'm like, I'm like,
yes.
So I just wanted
To that point.
to tie that in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that you said that.
Purging. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that was perfect. Yeah, I mean, it's good to.
Oh my gosh,
put it out
she's
there.
judging me that I'm rude and I interrupted her.
So 2 weeks ago, I was checking in and being like, okay, how do I move like all this stuff, any wonky things I'm feeling? And I heard, because I hear and exactly who it's from, it doesn't matter. And I heard, well, you can do us a favor and yourself a favor and not do small judgments. I'm pretty good with the big judgments. It's sometimes the small judgments, such as driving. So last week, on my way to, on Monday on my way to Nantucket, I ran to the Cape Cod Mall to grab something for my daughter. And as I'm coming out to get onto the main drag there, the main strip, I'm going to turn right, and there's a car in front of me. We have a red, and I catch myself being like, well, you can go. In my head, I'm like, go, right on right. Go. Now, I did have plenty of time that I was going to get to the boat. We do have some post-traumatic stress. If you live on an island, you have stress, because if you miss the boat, you miss the boat, and you have to wait a bunch of hours, and I work, so I can't reschedule people. So I do have a little of that. Yeah. But however, with I have plenty of time to get to the boat. So I'm like, come on, go. And I'm kind of like I'm not getting super like, you're ridiculous, you don't know how to drive. You know, I was getting a little, and then this is funny. I looked at the back of the car, and it was a Kia, and I noticed that in a different font, it has the word soul on the lower left, right? Okay. So I'm laughing.
Oh, that's the name of the car, the
It's
Kia
the name of the car,
Soul.
yes.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
But it sort of makes me laugh, because it's written in this kind of cool font. Like there's a point
Kia
to
is
it,
edgy.
you know?
Yeah.
Right. So I see soul and I start laughing because it reminds me, like, remember you were told and you made a commitment that you weren't going to do these little judgy things. Like, why are you letting that, like, you're judging that she's, and it was a woman because of course I looked as I passed later on.
Yeah. And we look.
And she was younger.
We look to see, after we watch them drive.
Yeah.
And
you're like, who are
you?
you?
We look to confirm, I was right. I knew it. I knew they were this age or.
I always look to say, I want to be like, who are you that you would not do what I think you should have done? That's kind of my thing. Like, who are you? And I did that. I was like, oh, you're like a young, you're a young woman, and maybe you look like you might have just learned how to drive. So I should just really, put that. Like, she didn't know. Because part of me, first I did this. I was like, well, you're from Massachusetts. So I did try to be nice at first. I was like, oh, right on red. Like, go right. And then I went, oh, well, maybe they're from another state and they don't know.
Okay.
I went, no, she's from Massachusetts. She should know right on red. And then I was like, and there's no traffic coming,
Yeah.
So I wasn't super ramped up, but
Yeah.
enough that I was like, And then I said the word soul, and I started laughing, right? And then, go through the rotary, and then I get up to another light, and I'm behind a completely different Kia. Completely different Kia. Funny. And I go, don't tell me. And then I look, and sure enough, there's the word soul, because it's a Kia Soul. And I was laughing so much to myself. I was like, okay, Aileen, remember you made this commitment. Your soul energy, your high vibration doesn't care about right on red. Right. It doesn't care. And this is a time to be living from the soul. Perfect. So it was really great. It was funny. So when you talked about the driving, that was one of my, that was like, guys, that was sort of the right. And I was thinking about that recently too, because someone did on my way here, didn't yield coming off, off a ramp on, and I was like, hey. But it's funny because I just was like, well, we're not having an accident, so who cares? Like, we're not. If it got close, right? Like if that person was going to hit me, then yes, I should honk. Like, hey, be careful. But I was like, well, we're not having an accident. No, he completely was not paying attention. He was just like, I'm just going to go. And I was like, well, so what? Who cares? I'm not going to crush into you because I'm paying attention.
Perfect. And you were clearly at that point in your commute aligned.
Yes.
Because when you are in your alignment, those kind of things just don't faze you. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, well, he might be having a bad day, or maybe he spilled his coffee. You give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right. I'm just kind of like, well, here's the other part. No, I didn't even think anything. I was like, oh, well,
even better.
It's not a problem. That's what you kind of think. You're like, well, there's no problem here.
Yeah. And I'm moving on to the next moment from this now. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking is, I was like wondering if we should share this judgment thing. I was like, now, we want to help people. How do I counsel people to not care what other people think and to not beat yourself up like huge lifetime of work in all the everything, not, again, these absolutes, I'd rather not use them. Lots of things fall back to self-worth.
Yes.
Even the fear, and we might have talked about this early on in the podcast, but it's worth revisiting. I think a lot of the fear, and our friend Vic brought this to my attention. So this primal fear that you learn something, like, oh, I shouldn't go in that cave because last time I went in with my tribe mate and the bear ate him, so maybe I won't go in that cave again. So it's one is you learn, and fear is your deterrent not to do things, but more of, and I get this, I feel like this ties to worthiness a lot. Back then when you were in tribes, and this has been a theme in a lot of my meditations, a lot of healing from really old stuff. If you were kicked out of the tribe for whatever reason, whether you weren't pulling your weight or you ticked somebody off or for whatever reason you stopped adding value to the tribe, you're dead.
Sure, exactly.
So I find a lot of the work I've been doing lately, I've been circling back to very primal-ish things, which I have ended up mapping back with the emotion code technique to really old tribal stuff, past lifetimes of maybe I had some issues with my tribe.
Right. And Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, the triangle here, talks about our survival needs have to come first. It's sort of feeling love and part of is a little bit up the ranks. And so it's to that point that if we it's all tied into surviving. So if you're not adding value to a tribe, even in this lifetime, right?
This is true.
In this lifetime, they'll kill you themselves, or they kick you out and you're all alone trying to fight with the elements or whatever. Or maybe you have a huge revelation and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
my point
whatever.
is, it's a difficult
It is.
thing to break.
Absolutely.
And trying not to be hard on myself because it goes back so
Goes to life or
deeply,
death.
so ingrained. And so it's not as simple as, well, I'm just not going to care about what people think. No,
Right.
I'm not going to care
It
about
goes
what he
back
thinks.
to life or death.
Yeah, I don't care if he thinks this. Okay, well, I do care if he thinks that,
Right,
you know, and
right.
so but it's a really hard concept to let
So
go.
one of the things that I'm seeing too is also getting triggered during this time is just a really honoring of the third eye, which is the observer.
Okay.
The third eye energy is the observer. And that is the one that is not emotionally triggered. It's more logical. It sees things sort of as they are, less subjective than bringing in some of the emotional addiction energy. You know, like we're addicted to our emotions. Wah, you know, because they are. It's a chemical. It's a chemical release.
Yes, I was having a conversation with my son about that when I picked him up from school. And he's like, I know I should just want to be calm, but I can tell I'm kind of addicted to his little girlfriend, the drama of it.
Sure.
I said, well, I think Abraham has said that. You know, when she says, you know, we love you very much, and then, you know, she's going to slam, but you humans would prefer to have an aggravated emotion than no emotion. And we're not saying no emotion, we're saying the emotion of peace and calm, but you feel that that's no emotion.
Because you get all jazzed up. It's like glug, 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 you know, rage, anger, drama, glug, 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 glug. You know, you're like drinking it. So I had this really cool moment with my partner where, and I think I might have mentioned this, but it speaks to this point. Whether it's my third eye or my brain wiring, I feel very fortunate that my brain is wired in such a way that it can quickly default to logic. I'm going to have to work on that a little bit because you still don't want to throw people off socially. It's a balance, but I think we talked about this. I don't know if we said it on tape or just you and I were talking about it. So I wasn't feeling well a couple of weeks ago, and I was hanging in there to not like go over the edge and really get sick. So he and I were going to see a comedian, and I took a bath, but I wasn't feeling great enough maybe to, you know, take a shower and get all dressed up, even though I had like, oh, this would be cool to get out on the town.
Yeah, date night.
Yeah. And I just said, yeah, okay, I feel good, I feel okay, I'm swinging out of it. But I just had like sweatpants on. I had blue sweatpants on and kind of a nicer sweater, but I was like, yeah, this is it. But a cozy clothes, like this great sweater I got in Ireland a bazillion years ago, and I got like my big Irish sweater on, and you know, I'm half Irish, and my great grandmother, who was like my favorite nurturer, she was, you know, Irish with a brogue, the whole thing, and I'm like, yes, you know, so I got these like old champion, old school sweatpants on that come around, you know, gathered at the ankle and the pockets, which also made me feel good because I was an athlete, so. Yeah. And then this sweater on, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. And when we got home that night or the next day, he had this really interesting and beautiful moment. He looked at me and he was like kind of off saying this sort of out loud to himself. He was like, wow, you really pulled off sweatpants in public. And I just was like, oh, And for me, logically, I was like, that's the best I could do. That was the best outfit for me. And then I said, well, that's interesting. He said, yeah, I had always made a promise to myself, because his family's had like weight issues and stuff, and for him, he identified wearing sweatpants out in public as being lazy or being overweight, not being able to wear something else, or it just wasn't the right thing to do. So I'm watching him kind of like, whoa, you were like, and it was a judging. People would judge him if he wore sweatpants in public, and he would judge himself. And he said, well, you were okay. And I said, yes. And this is my logic. I said, yes, I was not going to a fashion show. I was going to listen to a comedian. And whether I'm wearing sweatpants or a fancy dress would not change the comedian's performance.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not about me and what I'm wearing. I'm in the experience.
Yes. And you chose an outfit to be in the experience, to be comfortable.
Exactly. Because you're right, because if I wore something else, it would be about my outfit and not about the experience. And so I think what we really want to shift into is, what am I really doing here? What am I doing on this planet? Am I on this planet to experience all these beautiful things that are getting thrown into me? So it's like my eyes outward to receive and enjoy it, or am I like jumping out, trying to get into someone else's brain to think what they think about me, and then working myself to fit into what I think they think about me?
I do that.
Most people
often.
do. Yeah, most people do. And so when you use your logical third eye, like just see, like if you, I'll act it out again, right? I'm living like this. Oh, look at that comedian. Ah, that is so great. I'm into the comedian. I'm into her. I'm into the room. I'm into everything else. This, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares, right? I'm into that. I want to experience it, right?
Yes.
And what most of us do is we look. We're not experiencing. What we're doing then is we're looking. We're trying really hard to get into someone else's brain, guess, project what we think they think, which is impossible, 1,000 million % impossible, really. I mean, psychically, we can talk about that later, but for the most part. So now I'm using this energy to go into, and this time and energy and effort to go into their brain to do something it's impossible for me to do. And then I'm going to wait until that information comes back to me, kind of, that I think, and then I'm going to vary myself and change myself to then present to them in a way that I think I'm making up, that then they will like me, or then they think I will have value. Like, what? Like,
well, when you put it
wow.
that way, I guess I've been doing it wrong, if you're going to put it that way.
And everybody, like most people do.
Yeah.
Most, because if you don't, so a lot of times, and you know, do I hang around with a little bit of awesome autism-y stuff? Absolutely. And with that said, a lot of times people who are very logical, people are just like, ugh, because we do like the drama, right? So they're the ones, they're like, oh, you know, like pushing that person to the side. Yeah. So it's like, well, do I care if I get pushed to the side or not? Now, if I'm enjoying my experience, why do I care what these people have to do? Because they can't ruin my time at the comedian.
Right.
So if you think about it, right, and many of us, it happens. Like, let's say I was leaving and my partner was like, you're going to wear that, right?
Oh,
then,
well, that would make for an interesting evening now, wouldn't it?
Right. Now, for me, because I'm also feisty, there's a lot of reasons I'm feisty. For me, I'd say, yes, I am. Get over yourself. Like, no, yes, I'm wearing this. Because in my mind, I already know why I'm wearing it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have to, like, he's not in my body. He doesn't know how I feel. Plus, I already know it doesn't matter what I'm wearing to see the comedian, right? Yeah. However, most people would feel terrible.
Yeah.
They would now hear, because that's like a wicked, that's a total judgy thing to say. Like, what you're saying when you say to someone, are you sure that's what you should wear? Or maybe you should. You're telling that, you're disempowering, you're already saying to that person, you're not smart enough to know what you should be wearing on your body right now.
Yeah, or you would, and Jimmy and I have we have a running joke, and the kids are in on it. One time I was dressed to go somewhere, and it was an important thing to me, and I wanted to be dressed for it because I wanted to feel confident. Yeah. And I walked in, you know, to grab my keys, and he goes, "Look at you," like, and I'm like, that's the best you can do. Look at you. And so now, you know, when we're getting dressed to go somewhere, it was the holidays and everybody's dressed, and he walks in the kitchen. I'm like, look at you. Like, so it's just this running joke now. But you can latch on to these things.
Absolutely. And really, it's, again, whose life am I living? I'm not living somebody else's. I'm living my life, you know? Yeah. And I also do, because of how my body works, you know, a lot of times you'll note I like to wear really soft, comfortable things, because I like
tactile.
I am
you're
tactile.
Going off to work, and so you need to be in your.
And if I wear something that's too tight, or you know, again, our brains all work a certain way. I was in a relationship with someone once, and he wanted to put like a plastic covering kind of on the mattress before you put on like the sheets and stuff, right? Yeah, to protect, but it was like a plasticky feeling. Yeah. I am not good with materials.
Yeah.
I was lying in bed all night. I was like this.
Crunch, crunch, crunch. Like
I know, I couldn't even move. I was like, it is sucking the fluids out of my body. I like actually was like, I felt like it. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't, right? Yeah. And so when we think about things like that, like, okay, what is it about our bodies, our world, how we want to be present in the world? We want to be present in the world. And to be confident that our way is like, okay, it's okay. Now, you know, things can come up where there's some kind of norms, like when you go maybe to a funeral, right? You're not going to necessarily wear a clown costume.
Yeah, you want to be respectful. You don't want to cause other people pain by insinuating that by your dress you're not caring. I mean, you come to a clown costume in a funeral, it's kind of insensitive.
Right. Now, the flip side of that is a couple years ago, one of my friend's mothers died, and she was so, like, just very colorful, very, I mean, she was an artist that her house was the first house where we saw naked paintings because she was an artist, and then we were always like, whoa, like she was like a 70s gal, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna wear something really different. And so I had sort of pink flowing pants, and I wore something that she would have worn in the 70s. And I knew I was gonna be speaking. And when I was a little like flushed, like, ugh, but I really felt that this represented her in honor and celebration of her.
Yeah, so your intentions were
right. So that's, you're like, what am I doing, right? So what am I, and it was interesting that you said what I think I heard you say was about clothing to a funeral, you don't want to go to hurt other people. It's like,
Well, there's an Italian thing, right? If somebody ticks you off, and you're not happy with them, you show up at their funeral in a red dress. And it is a specific statement saying, you're dead, and I'm not. And you ticked me off.
Yes, isn't that so
there is
interesting?
Some of that, yeah. Let me interrupt for 1 second. Gabriella Bella, where are we at? I think we must be close.
25 minutes.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
25 minutes.
Nailed it.
So yeah, so
we can start to wrap it up.
Yeah, so that is the piece that I think it's sort of weird, but yes, giving ourselves permission to actually live our own life and to try to remember we're experiential learners. Now, for many of us in school growing up, it wasn't experiential learning. Remember, it's like we had to figure out how to answer questions in a way to get good grades. I mean, even writing essays when you got older, right? You're writing essays, it was all subjective to the teacher.
Sure.
A different teacher would give you a different grade potentially.
Absolutely.
So we have been, to be loving and kind to ourselves, we have been taught in order to succeed, to get good grades, to have mom and dad feed you or whatever, you gotta figure out what they want and what they like and give it to them.
Right, exactly. So that's perfect sum up. And so now, knowing that we are conditioned, now maybe advice for the week as we move through the week to put that third eye on and observe, oh, this doesn't feel good, or oh, I just did this. Did I do this for me? Well, because I think that they think that that would be good.
Exactly. And the other thing is body awareness of what anxiety might feel like. We have so much normalized anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? It's like getting up in the morning to get dressed.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just putting clothes on my body. The only thing I should be anxious about is am I going to be warm enough? Am I going to be cool enough, depending upon is this temperature okay? Or is there like a big hole somewhere that would be like a little inappropriate?
With respect to the outfit, what outfit is going to serve you? Now, like for example, just real quick, I had a self-tape audition for a gig, and it was for a financial company, and they only wanted it recorded waist up, and so I took off my sweatshirt and I put on a button-up blouse, and down here I had sweats and socks, and I'm like, you know what? I can't feel sharp unless I put on a pair of sharp slacks and heels, because when I worked, I equated that with my power in articulating my accuracy in my job. And so here it is, just this self-tape that I'm supposed to do from here up, and I went back and I put on pants and heels. Now, that's for an acting, but kind of we are on a stage, so I use clothes for the circumstance. Like, what's gonna make me, like if I go on this podcast, am I gonna feel more powerful in this or that? Or as I'm going out to enjoy, like going dancing with the girls on Saturday. I'm gonna wear comfortable shoes. Yeah, those heels are awesome, but I really can't dance as well in them. So yeah, you can leverage how you look to kind of drive your experience.
For yourself.
For yourself.
For yourself.
Perfect,
So that's the thing. So in the moment, if we're feeling anxiety, there's a particular kind of anxiety that will tip us off that we are, and I don't mean in a judgy way, but that we do have the power that we are choosing to disempower ourselves because we are making other people's, our perceived response from other people more important in our experience than our own from us experience. So it's sort of like if it's from us, then we are confident. Then we know what we know for us. If we're going outside, we're gonna feel, because we're tearing us apart from us, ourselves, to try to get something from somebody else that we can't.
To try to get them not to judge us, or to judge us in a positive way. Like you started saying, there's also a positive
when
judgment.
people say positive things to us, why we don't believe them. That's a little bit of the, like, you know, the sham I am that maybe we can talk about next week.
Okay, let's do that.
Because there's that too, which is this interesting thing about credibility, where someone could be our best friend or someone we really hold like, whoa, that person is so intelligent and so wise. And then they say, I really think you're wonderful, or I love how you do this. And we're like, oh, thanks, awkward. That can't be true. They're just saying that to be nice. Like, or whatever
that's a whole
we do,
show,
right?
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, it is a whole
Absolutely.
nother show. It's like, why don't we believe the people that we believe in that we think are great when they say something nice to us?
The other end. So I think that'll tie in nice. That'll be the yin to the yang of what we just talked about.
Yeah,
about
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So as you move forward this week, just be aware of how you're feeling when you're contracting, and before you launch into behavior, just kind of be like, what works for me?
Right. Am I in myself, or have I reached out beyond myself to do my life, as opposed to doing my life from within myself outward?
Love it. And as always, more to be revealed.
Thank you for joining us on Expansive Minds podcast, Gateway to Freedom. Until next time, more to be revealed.